Assalamu alaikum everyone. क्या हाल चाल हैं आप लोगों के? Just a minute. एक मिनट हाँ, स्टार्ट कर रहे हैं. Okay, so what are your thoughts? Binomial took the show. I told you guys to be careful what you wish for. आप ही लोगों ने कहा था ना मुश्किल बनाने को. So I made a difficult one. चलें, so let's start. It's time to officially start. Achha, so some easy questions. For the easy questions, I'm just going to save some time. I'll give you guys the answer directly. Okay? Like for example, simultaneous and stuff like that. Okay? I'll form the equation and everything. Okay? Uske baad I'll just leave you guys do it. You guys can figure it out. Okay? So for example, the very first question. Let's have a look. Solve the following simultaneous equations. 4x squared plus 3xy plus y squared is equals to 8. Xy plus 4 is equals to 0. Now, simultaneous because hasn't been tested, so I'm expecting simultaneous to show up in paper 2. Okay, maybe it could be combined with coordinate geometry. It could be an independent question. I guess that we'll have to wait and find out. But I am expecting it to show up. Okay. अच्छा, अब देख लेते हैं इसको सॉल्व करते हैं. Let's use the second equation. So if you use the second equation and make x the subject, that'll be, or make y the subject. It's up to you, whatever you make the subject, whether it's y or x. Let's make y the subject. So y would be equal to minus 4 upon x. Okay, now since this has come with the help of the second equation, so we're going to plug it back into the first equation. Okay, it's an easy question, but still there's a lot that can go wrong here. So you have 4x squared plus 3x into minus 4 upon x, okay, plus y square, which means minus 4 upon x, the whole thing square. So I think we'll probably head towards a disguised quadratic. Let's find out, equals to 8. So what happens is x and x cancels. Now we have 4x square minus 12 plus 16 upon x square, which is equal to 8. Okay, let's take the LCM. Let's see what happens. So the LCM would be x squared. So now we have 4x power 4 minus 12x squared plus 16 is equals to 8. ठीक हो गया? Okay, now. Then when you cross multiply, so you have 4x power 4 minus 12x squared plus 16 is equals to 8x squared. Now you move all the terms to the left hand side. So you have 4x power 4 minus 20x squared plus 16 is equals to 0. Okay. Achha, from this point onwards, I'll just give you guys the final answer. Okay. So as far as x is concerned, for x you will get plus and minus 1. Okay. Or you will get x to be equal to plus and minus 2. Okay. Then as far as y is concerned, you can write it in point form. So notice that when x is 1, तो y की जो values आएंगी वो आएंगी minus plus 4. Yeah, so minus, first you'll get minus, then you will get plus 4, or y is equals to minus plus. Now reason why we're writing minus plus is because if you plug in the positive value of x, you get negative value of y. If you plug in the negative value of x, you get the positive value of y. Okay, so y equals to minus plus 2. So basically, long story short, here's the deal. You get 1 comma negative 4. Okay, and you get minus 1 comma positive 4. Okay, so this is 1 point, and then you get 2 comma negative 2, and then you get -2 comma +2. Okay, so here are basically your answers. Read the question to see if the question has a specific requirement. No, it doesn't. So that's it. Job done. Question number 1. Easy 6 marks. Okay? All good so far, I hope. Hope you guys are getting full so far. Sir, AdMaths की तैयारी के लिए कोई specific past papers or yearly के P1 करें? Beta, just focus on the topics that haven't been tested. Okay, I've made a video talking in detail about the topics that haven't been tested. So whether that's in paper 1 or whether that's in paper 2, okay, just focus on that. Simple. Because all the past papers that you guys have right now, except for February, March, have the same pattern. Okay, there's no difference. Okay, now question number 2. Given that y is equals to 2 plus 4 cos 3 theta, for -120 to 120, write down the amplitude of y. Now, it's always a good idea to first write it nicely. That's what I always prefer. If you write it nicely, you have y is equals to 4 cos 3 theta plus 2. Okay? Now, what's the amplitude? The amplitude is always the coefficient, so that's equal to 4. Then what is the period? The period will be equal to 360 divided by the coefficient of y. What's that equal? The coefficient of theta. What's that equal to? That's equal to 120 degrees. So that means after 120 degrees, one cycle will end. Sir, please tips on how to get full marks. Just don't do anything wrong. That's the best tip that I can give you. Now, on the axis, sketch the graph of y. Okay, so here's what you can do. You can use your calculator here. Okay, now I hope you guys know how to do that. If you don't, then you've probably been living under a rock, because I've made multiple videos on it and I've discussed this also multiple times. But if you're unaware of this feature, then just Google it. Okay, just Google it, or in fact YouTube it. You'll find plenty of videos that will teach you how to use the table feature of your calculator. Okay, now especially when calculators are allowed, so you better use this. It will come in handy. So here's what you do. You go into menu, okay, and then you navigate to where you see table. Okay, you press equals to for that. Now, what is f of x equal to? F of x is equals to 4. Make sure that your calculator is in degree mode, first of all. 4 cos 3 theta. Now, we don't have theta, but that's not a problem. We can write x instead. Plus 2. ठीक हो गया. G of x, skip that. Starting value, so you can see that the starting value is -120 and the ending value is 120. So -120, press equals to enter. Ending value 120, press equals to enter. Now what's the step? The step is, you can take the step from the grid. Okay, the step is 20 degrees. So let's take that. We might have to change this, but let's take the step as 20 degrees so that we can plug in values after, so that the calculator plugs in values after every 20 degree interval, and then we get the output according to that. Okay, now let's see what happens. Okay, so we get nice values. Now what do I mean by nice? Nice values means that the output values are integer values. So that'll be easier for us to mark. Now, at -120, it's +6. So let's put a cross there. Okay. At -100, it's 4. At -80, it's equal to 0. At -60, it's equal to -2. At -40, it's equal to 0. Here we go. At -20, it's equal to 4. And at 0, it's probably equals to 6 again. There you go. Okay, so that's one cycle. And we know that since the range is from -120 to 120, we can make how many cycles? We can make 2 cycles. So the next cycle, the following cycle, is just going to be an exact replica of the previous one. So there you go. Okay. Now, okay, moving on. Question number 3. Let's see what question 3 says. Any tips for smooth curve? So here's what I would suggest. First, just hover your pencil through all the points to get an idea of what the graph looks like. Okay, so do that like quite a few times. Do that like 4 or 5 times. And then once you're feeling confident, you have a good idea of what the curve looks like, then you actually go ahead and join the points. ठीक हो गया? Okay. So last 2 questions तो बहुत बार किए हैं, even in your streams as well. अच्छा, I'll have to see what the last 2 questions are. I don't remember like that. Now, question number 3. The points A, B, and C have coordinates so and so. given that B is the third point of AC, B is the midpoint of AC, okay, find the equation of the line that passes through C and is perpendicular to AB, give your answer in so and so form. Okay, so first of all, it says that find the equation of the line that passes through C and is perpendicular to AB. Now, even though we know the point through which it's passing, but here's the problem. We don't know what are the actual coordinates of P and Q. Okay, I mean, we don't know the actual X and Y coordinates, but we do know that B is the midpoint of AC. So that will come in handy. Okay, so here are the coordinates of A, 2, 6. Here are the coordinates of B, 6, 1. And here are the coordinates of C, P, Q. Now the question says B is the midpoint of AC. So that means 2 plus P upon 2 will be equal to the X coordinate of the midpoint. Okay. So that means 2 plus P is equals to 12. So P is equals to 10. Now let's do the same to find Q. So that would be 6 plus Q upon 2 is equals to the Y coordinate of the midpoint. So 6 plus Q is equals to 2. So Q would be equal to 2 minus 6, which is equal to minus 4. So that means we have the coordinates of C. Let's put them on the side. They're 10, minus 4. Sir, intercepts show कर लें तो marks मिल जाएंगे. What do you mean by that? Intercepts and turning point? Which question are you talking about? Sir, can you squeeze in 30 minutes to an hour bacteria? Tomorrow, let's see. Let's see if I can do that tomorrow. Anyway, let me solve this question, then I'll take your queries, guys, okay? So if you post your question right now, then later on you guys are going to cry about it. Okay, you didn't answer my query, you didn't do this. So let me solve this question, then I'll have a look at your queries. So what do we know? What's the gradient? The gradient is that it's perpendicular to AB. So let's find out the gradient of AB. So that's 1 minus 6 over 6 minus 2. 1 minus 6 would be minus 5. 6 minus 2 would be equal to 4. Okay, now what about the gradient of the line that's perpendicular? That would be equal to 4 upon 5. Okay, now let's put this all together. So we have the gradient, we have the point through which it's passing. Let's put this together and form an equation. Y minus minus will eventually become Y plus is equals to M, which is 4 upon 5 into X minus 10. Now, since the question has a specific requirement, that means we have to write it that way. Otherwise, we won't get full marks. So 5y plus 20 is equals to 4x minus 40. Now let's write it the way the question wants. That is first x, then y, and then the constant. So that means minus 4x plus 5y is equals to minus 40. 10, minus 5. Are you sure about that? Nope. Minus 4x plus 5y is equals to minus 60. Okay, I'll just check the answer to be on the safe side, but I'm pretty sure it's what you're saying is wrong. Okay, but I'll check the answer, no worries. Okay, so we've done it correctly. 4x, you can write it as 4x minus 5y equals to 60. That's also acceptable. 4x minus 5y equals to 60. ठीक है, ये भी चलेगा. Now, find the range of values of x satisfying the inequality. Now, luckily for us, we don't have to waste our time expanding and then factorizing because it's already factorized. Okay, how do I know it's already factorized? Because there's 0 here. If let's say there was some other value, then we would have expanded, made a nice quadratic equation out of it, a quadratic inequality, solve it like we would solve a quadratic inequality, and then we would identify the range. But here's the catch. There's a small catch here. The catch is that if you were to solve this quadratic inequality by making a quadratic curve, what kind of a curve will you draw? What kind of a curve will you draw? Will you draw a minimum curve or a maximum curve? What are the critical values? The critical values are 1 upon 5 or x is equals to 6. Walaikum salam. So we have the critical values, 1 upon 5 or 6. 1 upon 5 and 6. Minimum curve, are you sure about that you would draw a minimum curve? No. Why would we draw a minimum curve, guys? We'll make a maximum curve. Okay? Because 5x into minus x is minus x square. Okay, so we'll not draw a minimum curve, guys. We'll draw a maximum curve. Pay attention. Okay. If let's say that we had the option of expanding, okay, because it's a 2-mark question, then I wouldn't recommend that. But if let's say this was already an expanded version, in that case, I would recommend that you turn it into a minimum curve and then you draw. But here I wouldn't recommend that because you'd be wasting a lot of time. Since it's already factorized, so just, yeah, you could do that. You could multiply both sides by minus and then change the sign. You could totally do that. That's perfectly all right. So if you've done that and then you've changed the sign and you've drawn a minimum curve, that's perfectly all right. Okay, so in the end, you should end up with the same answer as if you don't multiply both sides and multiply both sides by minus and make a minimum curve. Okay, in the end, you should end up with the same answer. Now, we're going to make a maximum curve. All right, if I'm making a maximum curve, that means the region that I want is less than 0. Okay, if I make a maximum curve, the region that I want is less than 0. Now, what is that region? That region is basically this one right here and this one right here. Okay, so if I'm looking at the inequality as is without changing or anything, then that means since it's less than 0, so that means we want the region where the curve is below the x-axis. That's the region that we want. Okay, so one answer would be x is greater than 6 since it's on the right side of 6, and the other answer would be that x is less than 1 upon 5. Okay, Acha, now you can use the number line method. I'm aware of that. You can totally do that. If you are aware of how that works, you can go ahead and use it. Okay, it's a good method, but we don't really use it in Ad Maths. We use it in P3, in A-level math, but we don't use it in Ad Maths. Anyway, which is basically a sign diagram also. Okay, sign diagram, it's also known as the number line method. So it's up to you. Okay, now let's move on. Irrespective of whether you multiply both sides by minus or not, you should get, this is the correct answer, and this is what you should get. Show that the equation. Okay, now this is a show that equation. That means we're not going to set the discriminant equal to anything. We're not going to set it greater than 0, less than 0, greater than or equal to 0. We'll have to show that the discriminant is always equal to something. Okay. Now show that the equation where k is not equal to half has distinct real roots. So that means we have to show, okay, we don't have to find the value of k or anything. We have to show that b square minus 4ac is greater than 0. Okay, so we have to show that. Now how do we do that? Let's have a look. So what's b, what's a, what's c? So b, as you can see, is minus a. In fact, let's start with a. A is 2k plus 1. B is minus 4k. And c is 2k minus 1. Okay. So b square minus 4ac is greater than 0. 4 is greater than 0. Let's check. So minus 4k, the whole thing square, that's b square minus 4 times 2k plus 1 times 2k minus 1. Now be a little smart. 2k plus 1, 2k minus 1, for that we can use an identity, and that's going to be a square minus b square. So that's going to be 4k square minus 1. Okay, and this will be 16k square. So that means 16k square minus 16k square plus 4. Now, what is the discriminant equal to? The discriminant b square minus 4ac is equals to 4. And 4 is greater than 0. Therefore, distinct real roots, or you can say real and distinct roots. Here we go. हाँ बिल्कुल याद है, ये वही है ना, डैम क्वेरी वाला, बिल्कुल याद है मुझे. Okay, now question number 5. Let's see what question 5 says. The curve C has equation so and so. The normal to C at the point where x equals to 1 meets the line y equals to x at the point P. Find the exact coordinates of P. Okay, so there hasn't been a question of equation of tangent and normal, then I'm definitely, which is why I'm expecting maybe a question which is, it could be a question which has a bit of both. Equation of tangent and normal and area under the curve. Or maybe two separate questions. Okay, you guys will have to update me after the exam. So why isn't it greater than or equal to 0? It says distinct real roots. It doesn't say real roots, it says distinct. Okay, when it's distinct, it's greater than 0. All right, the curve C has equation. The normal to C at the point where x equals to 1 meets the line y equals to x. So first let's find out the equation of normal. So y is equals to ln x cubed plus 3, okay, which means dy by dx will be equal to 1 upon x cubed plus 3 multiplied by 3x squared. Okay, so that's dy by dx. Now what point are we talking about? We're talking about the point where x is equals to 1. So dy by dx, first let's write it nicely, 3x squared upon x cubed plus 3. The normal to C at the point where x equals to 1 meets the line y equals to x. अच्छा अब एक काम करें. Let's find out the gradient of tangent by plugging in x equals to 1 in dy by dx. So that would be equal to 3 times 1 squared, which is as good as 3, over 1 cube, which is 1. 1 plus 3, that's equal to 4. But the gradient of normal, that will be equal to minus 4 upon 3. Okay. Now, what are the x and y coordinates? The x and y coordinates are going to be equal to. अच्छा बेटा अगर आपको लग रहा है कि मैं आपको इग्नोर कर रहा हूँ तो मैं आपको हाइड ही कर देता हूँ. ठीक है. So now you probably won't have that complaint. So if x is equals to 1, then y will be equal to ln 4. ठीक है. So x equals to 1 and y is equals to ln 4. All right. Now, and it says the normal to the curve at the normal to C at the point where x equals to 1 meets the line y is equals to x. Okay. At the point P. So we'll have to solve it simultaneously and we have to find out the exact coordinates of P. Okay. So they said x equals to 1, but it says meets the line y equals to x. Yeah, so basically here is the kind of situation that we are in. So imagine that this is the ln graph. Always make a rough sketch. Okay? Always make a rough sketch. It will definitely help you. Okay? Achha. So I'm not sure if it's going to look like this, but something like this, something along those lines. Where did ln 4 come from? Plug in x equals to 1 in the equation of the curve. So x equals to 1 will perhaps be somewhere over here. Let's imagine that this is the point where x equals to 1. So this is what the tangent will look like, but we're not interested in the tangent. We are interested in the normal. Okay? Now this normal meets the line y equals to x. Okay? Let me draw that using a different color. So here's the thing. Here's the situation that we're in. This normal meets the line y equals to x at the point P. ln 5, why would it be ln 5, beta? Why would it be ln 5? If you plug in 1 in place of x, so what's 1 plus 3? Okay, if you're not feeling too confident about that, use a calculator. Now this point, by the way, has coordinates 1, comma, ln 4. Okay? Okay, I don't know what you guys are on, but it's definitely not nice. Anyway, so let's form the equation of the normal. So y minus ln 4 is equals to minus 4 upon 3 into x minus 1. Okay. But here's the thing. We have the equation of the normal. We're not going to simplify or anything. So yeah. I think आप लोगों ने ज़्यादा पढ़ लिया, which is why you're having doubts whether 3 plus 1 is equals to 4 or 3 plus 1 is equals to 5. Khair. So where were we? This is the equation of the normal. Okay. Now we have to solve it simultaneously with the line y equals to x. Okay, so if y is equals to x, that means whether you find the x coordinate or whether you find the y coordinate, they're both going to be the same. Okay, so all you got to do is just plug in y in place of x or plug in x in place of y. Same thing. Okay, so I'm just going to replace y with x and I'm going to solve for x. I think that'll be easier. So x minus ln 4 is equal to minus 4 upon 3 x minus 1. And remember, to keep your eyes on the prize, you want the exact coordinates. All right, so now let's cross multiply. So 3x minus 3 ln 4, which is equal to minus 4x plus 4. Let's get all the x's on one side. So that's going to be 7x is equals to 3 ln 4 plus 4. Because the question hasn't given us a specific format in which we need to write our answer, other than the fact that we have to write it in exact form. So you can leave 3ln4 as it is, or if you want, you can make it ln64. If you want, that's up to you. So 7x is equals to ln64 plus 4. Please don't make the mistake of adding ln64, 64 and 4. So x is equals to ln 64 plus 4 upon 7. Now, if this is the x coordinate, what do you expect the y coordinate to be? Y coordinate will also be the same because it's intersecting the line y equals to x at any point on the line y equals to x is such that x and y are both equal. Okay, so we have to write down the exact coordinates of P. Let's write them in coordinate form. So here's the x coordinate, okay, and here is the y coordinate. That's it. Job done. Okay, sir, I'm doing IGCSE. No, if you're doing IGCSE pure maths, what do you mean by pure maths? You're going to have to explain to me what you mean by pure maths. The first three terms of an arithmetic progression are so and so. Given that the sum to n terms of this progression is so and so, find the value of n. Okay, sum to n terms. Now we're also given the first three terms, so that means we can find out the common difference. So the common difference can be Lg theta raised to the power of 5 minus Lg theta raised to the power of 2. So we can write this as Lg theta raised to the power of 5 over theta squared, which basically means that the common difference is equals to Lg theta cubed or 3Lg theta. It's up to you how you write it. Okay. Edexcel pure maths. I think it's similar, but since I'm not aware of the syllabus, so I really can't say anything. Anyway, sum of n terms. Now, how do you find out the sum of n terms? The formula for sum of n terms is Sn is equals to n upon 2. Okay, no need to write down the formula, it's just a total waste of time. So, n upon 2 into 2a. So, 2a means 2 times Lg theta square. 2 times Lg theta squared. ठीक हो गया, plus n minus 1, 2a plus n minus 1 into the common difference, which is 3 Lg theta. Okay, and what's this equal to? This is equal to 4, 7, 3, 2 Lg theta. Okay, now let's see what we can do. Let me think about it. Do you teach in Alpha College? No, but I don't teach in any college or any school. So let's cross multiply. It's how many marks? It's 5 marks. So there's definitely a lot of working involved. Okay. So when you cross multiply, this is what you end up with. You end up with n times. Achha, let's write this nicely. So this will become 4 Lg theta. 4 Lg theta. Let's expand this also while we're at it. So this will become 3n Lg theta minus 3 Lg theta. ठीक है, is equal to 4732 times 2, that's equal to 9464 Lg theta. ठीक हो गया? Okay, now चलिए बेटा, if you feel like I'm ignoring you, तो चलो आपको भी hide कर देता हूँ, so you don't have that complaint anymore. Okay, now let's expand. So we have 4. Achha, wait a minute. Before we expand, let's simplify inside the bracket. So 4 Lg theta minus 3 Lg theta, what's that equal to? That's equal to Lg theta. So Lg theta plus 3n Lg theta. And what's this being multiplied with? This is being multiplied by n is equal to 9464 Lg theta. Okay, now let's see what do we end up with. So we end up with 3n square Lg theta plus n Lg theta is equal to 9464 Lg theta. Now you guys can probably see where we're going. We can take Lg theta common. Okay, when you take Lg theta common, this is what you end up with. You end up with 3n square plus n is equals to 9464 Lg theta. So Lg theta cancel. And now when you move all the terms to the left hand side, this is what you end up with. Okay, now make sure that you show your working. Okay, make sure that you show your working. And and I am just going to solve this directly in my calculator. All right, so let's do that. So we have 3 minus 1, whoops, cubic equation. I hope you guys know how to do that, by the way. So 3 minus 1 minus n, oh yeah, n is positive, plus 1. So 3 plus 1 minus 9464. So we get one value of n. The positive value of n is obviously the one that we're going to take. So n is equals to 56. And the other value of n is completely irrelevant, meaningless actually. That's minus 169 upon 3. So the value that we're going to take is 56. Okay. अच्छा वैसे मैंने ज़रूरत से ज़्यादा space use कर ली working की. So a good idea would be to actually be efficient with the space utilization. Okay. And when you end up with something like this, a quadratic equation, make sure to show your working. Now you can be smart about it. You can write down the quadratic formula with the values plugged in, and then you can use your calculator to write down the final answer. ठीक हो गया? अच्छा, now let me take all your questions. 56 is the correct answer. Good job. Sir, why did you stop teaching in schools? Why did I stop? Just not worth my time. That's why. Do you recommend taking further maths? So the rule behind taking further math is simple. If you haven't felt challenged by any form of math that you've taken so far, your entire life, only then will I recommend that you take further math. Simple. So do you think we will finish the exam a little early and have time to check? Ideally, you should. Ideally, you should check as you go along. Okay, don't wait for till the end because there's no guarantee. So best thing you can do is check as you go along. Anyway, this sum is equals to so and so. Find the exact value of theta. Now, even if, let's say, God forbid, you were unable to solve the first part, you can still solve this mark. Although it's worth 1 mark only, but you can still guarantee yourself 1 mark. So this is equal to minus 14196. Okay, this is what the sum is equal to, right? That's, yeah. Now, LG theta will be equal to minus 14196 over 4732. 4732. So let's work this out. 14196 divided by 4732. Okay, so this is minus 3. So LG theta is equals to minus 3. So theta is equals to 10 raised to the power minus 3. So that means theta is equals to 1 upon 10 cube or 1 upon 1000. Here we go. What school did I teach last? Nixer. Nixer is where I taught last. Sir, do you prefer to solve the easier question? Of course, solve the easier question. Solve the easier question irrespective of whether it's lengthy or not, but solve the easier question, get your confidence level high. When you're feeling confident, that is when you should attempt the difficult questions. Okay? Please don't just solve the paper the order in which the questions are given. Always start with the easier questions first. Okay, I think binomial question was perhaps the hardest in this paper. Is that correct? What do you guys think? I think this was the hardest question. And also a one-of-a-kind question. I mean, there haven't been questions of binomial like this ever. Anyway, the expansion of a plus x upon a to the power n in ascending powers of x begins b power 4 plus 48b cube x cube. Okay. So notice that means we only have to expand and find out the first two terms. Okay. So nc0 a raised to the power n x upon a raised to the power 0. So that's your first term. Then the next term would be nc1 a raised to the power n minus 1 x upon a raised to the power of 1. ठीक हो गया? Okay. Now nc0 we can ignore that. Here we have a power n. ठीक है? Which and plus nc1 which is n a raised to the power n minus 1. So let's simplify this. That can be written as a power n upon a into x upon a. Yeah. So that means we can write this as a power n plus n a power n upon a square x, which if you want, in fact, I will recommend it. I will recommend that you write it like this. A power n plus n a raised to the power n minus 2x. And what's this being equal to? This is equal to b power 4 plus 48 b cube x. So that means a power n is equals to b power 4, but that doesn't help. That does not help. However, okay, let me think. However, here's what we can do. N into a raised to the power n minus 2 is equals to 48 b cube. Yeah, this makes sense. So let's keep our eyes on the prize. Notice the question says that a power n is equals to b power 4. Okay. So that means, and here, if you notice, the question has given us an equation which has a and n. Okay, it does not have b. All right. So what we can do is we can make b the subject and then we can substitute that. Yeah, let's do that. Let's make b the subject. So b power 4 is equals to a power n. Let me solve this, then I'll take your queries. Okay, so let's take the fourth root on both sides. If you take the fourth root on both sides, so that means b is equals to a raised to the power n upon 4. Okay, and let's plug that in here. Not here, obviously, but let's plug that in here. Okay, so that means n times a raised to the power n minus 2 is equals to 48. Now, in place of b, we will now have a raised to the power n upon 4, the whole thing cubed. Okay, keep your eyes on the prize. All right, makes sense. Now, this is the situation that we are now in. N raised to the power n times a raised to the power n minus 2 is equals to 48 times a raised to the power 3n upon what's 4 times 3, that's equal to 12. ठीक हो गया? Which can be simplified. No, wait a minute. ये मैं क्या कर रहा हूँ? 3n upon 4. Yeah. Now let's get all the a with the power on one side and everything else on the other side. So that means a raised to the power n minus 2 upon a raised to the power 3 upon 4n is equals to 48 upon n. Now we're getting there. We're not quite there, but we are getting there gradually. So what's n minus 2 minus 3 upon 4n? So we can subtract n and 3 upon 4n. Now I'll add an extra layer of working here so that it's clear to you guys. N minus 2 minus 3 upon 4n is equals to 48 upon n. Now what does this become? We can simplify this. N minus 3 upon 4n is equals to 1 upon 4. So this becomes a raised to the power 1 upon 4n minus 2 is equals to 48 upon n. Now we're there, but we're also not there. Okay, there's one missing piece of the puzzle. And notice that here we have n upon 2 minus 4. Here we have 1 upon 4n minus 2. Okay, and you can clearly identify the missing piece of the puzzle is basically the square. So that means if I square both sides, just so that I can match it with the way it's given in the question. So let's see if the left-hand side holds up. We know that the right-hand side will have a square on it, no big deal, but let's see if the left-hand side holds up. So what's 1 upon 4n times 2? That's equal to 1 upon 2n. And what's minus 2 times 2? That's equal to minus 4 is equals to 48 upon n, the whole thing square. Now, eyes on the prize. Is it equal to what the question said it should be equal to? Yes, it is. Now, I've written it as half n. The question has written it as n upon 2. But that's no big deal. And that's it. Job done. ठीक है. अच्छा. Now, just to validate other solutions, you could also make b the subject here. As in, you could use the second equation and make b the subject. But that would be quite problematic, actually. No, I wouldn't recommend that. I wouldn't recommend that you use the second equation to make b the subject. Okay, in case you're wondering which equation is the first, which one is the second. So this is the first equation, which I use to make b the subject. I wouldn't recommend that you use the second equation to make B the subject. That would make things quite problematic. Okay, acha. Now let me take your questions. Sir, sounds like you really love that adding vectors question. Which question? It's not that I love it, it's just that I'm expecting it to come. I could be wrong, but those are the kind of questions that from vectors that I'm expecting to come in paper 2. Is it bad to listen to anything while doing past papers? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Because you can't do that in the actual exam. So whatever it is that you can't do in the actual exam is bad. Okay, so here's the summary. First of all, you expand this and you find out the first two terms. Once you find out the first two terms, we compare. Upon comparing, we come up with two equations. Okay? And here's the thing, you know what the interesting part is? From this point onwards, it's no longer a binomial question. Okay? From this point onwards, it's no longer a binomial question, it's now a simultaneous question. After comparison, you can see that the first term is equal to the first term, second term is equal to the second term. Now you have to basically make these are two equations, and these two equations combined have three different unknowns, a, b, and n. Now what you have to do is you have to form an equation which has basically a and n. So that means in one of the two equations, you have to substitute b. So we make b the subject using the first equation and we substitute it in the second equation. And then we write it the way the question wants. Simple as that. I mean, I know it's much easier said than done. There's a lot of algebraic manipulation that goes into it, but it's no longer a binomial question from this point onwards. It's just a simultaneous question. Anyway, given also that the third term, okay, so the question is not done yet. So we have a third term. Given also that the third term, now how will we find out the third term? Here's how we're going to find out the third term. The third term would be NC3 a raised to the power, a is the first term, right? Yeah, n minus 3. And then the x upon a raised to the power 3. No, sorry, the third term, sorry. So that's going to be NC2. NC2, n minus 2 to the power of 2. So this would be equal to n into n minus 1 upon 2 factorial, which is as good as 2, times a raised to the power n minus 2 into x square upon a raised to the power 2. See, ho gaya? And what's this equal to? This is equal to 1056 b square x square. It's a 6-mark question, okay? So that means it's probably going to be lengthier than this one. All right, so let's see what do we have. Now we can ignore the x square because we're only comparing coefficients, right? So we have n square minus n. Okay, we have n square minus n upon 2. Yeah. Into a raised to the power n minus 2 upon a square. So that's going to be a raised to the power n minus 4. ठीक हो गया? Is equal to 1056 b square. Okay. Interesting situation that we find ourselves in. Let's see what we can do. So we have b, n, and a. So the question earlier made us find out b in terms of a. Let's see if I can use this. Yeah, I think I'll have to use this. So b is equals to a raised to the power n upon 4. So that means n square minus n upon 2 a raised to the power n minus 4 is equals to 1056 b, which is basically a raised to the power n upon 4, the whole thing squared. Okay, since it was b squared, so don't forget to square it. So let's see what do we end up with. So we end up with n squared upon n upon 2 times a raised to the power n minus 4 is equals to 1056. So here's the thing. We can simplify this. This will become a raised to the power half n. Okay, because 2 1s are and 2 2s are. Now when we divide this, okay, I think it's starting to come together now. So a raised to the power n minus 4 upon half n. I'll add an extra layer of working so you guys don't get confused. Now, not coincidentally, okay, this is probably a very well thought out question. N minus 4 upon half n. If you remember, I think we ended up with something similar. Yeah, so n minus 4 upon half n will basically simplify to half n minus 4. And we have n square minus n upon 2 as it is. ठीक है, which is equal to. अच्छा, also एक काम करते हैं. Let's multiply this 2 and 1056. So what's that equal to? 1056 times 2. That's equal to 2112. So this is equal to 2112. Now what's this equal to? If you remember from the previous part, this is equal to 48 upon n, the whole thing square. So n square minus n into 48 upon n, the whole thing square. Achha, I have an idea. I shouldn't have expanded it. Is equals to 2112. So let's once again take n common. So n into n minus 1 into 48 squared upon n squared is equals to 2112. Okay, it's a 6-mark question. So obviously it needs to be treated like a 6-mark question. Now this is what we're looking at. Let's cross multiply. So we have n minus 1 times 48 squared. In fact, let's evaluate 48 squared, which is equal to 2304. So n minus 1 into 2304 is equals to 2112. Okay, now let's expand. Or maybe we can divide also. Okay, wait a minute. Either n bhi to hai. Yeah, so let's expand. 2304n minus 2304 is equals to 2112n. So 2304 minus 2112 is equals to 192n, which is equal to 2304, and 2304 divided by answer, so n is equals to 12. And please tell me that's the correct answer. It is, Vasa. As far as I remember, I've solved this question multiple times. This is the correct answer. Okay. So here we go. N is equals to 12. And obviously, we can only take the positive value of n. We can't take the negative value of n. Okay. Where did the factorial go? 2 factorial is equals to 2. How to attempt a velocity or displacement time graph question. Watch a stream. I'm sure I've done a stream on it. Yeah, we're going to find out A and B. Don't worry about it. We're going to find out A and B. Okay. So in general, if you do something with a different method or slightly different steps, do we lose method marks even if we're... No. As long as your method is legit, then you will not lose marks. Okay. Achha, I've only found out the value of n, fellas. We still have to find out the value of A and B. Okay, so... But now it's all downhill from here. We found out n, so we can find out A. Let's use this. So if n is equals to 12, that means a raised to the power half n. Half n would be half times 12, so that's 6. 6 minus 4 is equals to 2. And 48 upon 12, that's 4, so that's 4 square. So a square is equals to 16, so that means a is equals to plus minus 4. Okay, does the question say anything about a being positive or negative or something like that? Yep, it does. So that means we're only going to take the positive value of a. Okay, and don't forget that a power n was equal to b power 4. Now that we have the value of a and we have the value of n, we can find out the value of b. So we can take the fourth root on both sides. So that means b is equals to 4 raised to the power 12 and the fourth root. So b is equals to 4 cubed. That means b is equals to 64. Positive. So here we go. We have the value of a, b, and... I mean, honestly speaking, I think this should be worth more than 6 marks because... I'll tell you what... Okay, so here's something that you guys should know. Marking scheme mein na, this is something important for you guys. So the marking scheme will consider this worth 1 mark only. Okay? Why? Because if you think about it, we've added all these additional layers of working just so that we don't get it wrong. Okay, but technically what we're doing is we're coming from this equation to this equation. All we're doing from this point onwards is simplifying. So marking scheme की नज़र में ये सिर्फ वो एक मार्क की वर्थ है उसकी. ठीक है, वो जितने भी हम बीच में भले हम बीच में 50 स्टेप्स ही क्यों ना कर लें, for just to make sure that we don't get it wrong, it's worthless for the marking scheme. The marking scheme will just consider, in fact, up until here actually. Okay, so up until here, these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, these 5 steps according to the marking scheme, they're all just worth 1 mark. Okay, because the marking scheme wants to see you from here. Okay, the marking scheme will give you 1 mark if you go from here to here correctly. Okay, now whether you add like 50 layers of working or 1 layer of working, that's up to you. But this is how the marking scheme works. Okay. Anyway, why isn't b equal to 8? Why would b equal to 8? Why would it be equal to 8? It's equal to 64. 4 cube is equal to 64. This is from February, March, either 2023 or 2024. I don't remember, but this is from February, March. I know that. It's either 2023 or 2024. You will have to check that. Okay. Could you do a full syllabus run through of P2 admats? Is that really necessary? चलें देखते हैं. Let's see. Do you have more questions like this? Actually, I don't, because like I said, this is a one-of-a-kind question. This is a one-of-a-kind question, so I don't have more questions like these. A cylinder open at both ends has base, radius r and height 4r. Its curved surface area is s centimeter square. How should we mention on question paper that this part is attempted in booklet? What do you mean by booklet? Just mention it on the question that you've solved this question on so-and-so page. Anyway, so we're talking about a cylinder, first of all. Secondly, it's open at both ends. And we're talking about the curved surface area, which by the way is equal to 2 pi RH. And we're supposed to show that ds upon dt is equals to 6 times dr upon dt. No, wait a minute. We're not supposed to show that. We're supposed to find s at the instant when ds upon dt is equals to 6 times dr upon dt. Okay, now let me think about it. So if, let's say, I find ds upon dt using chain rule, let's see what that's going to be equal to. So that would be equal to ds upon dt. Here we'll have dr, and here also we'll have dr. Okay, so the curved surface area S is equal to 2 pi RH. Okay, let's find out, fellas. Let's find out. So 2 pi RH, radius is r, and the height is equals to 4r. So that means the curved surface area is equals to 8 pi r square. Now what happens if I differentiate this? So ds upon dr is equals to 8 times 2, that's 16. So 16 pi r. ठीक हो गया? Now, ds upon dt, let's go back to this equation. In fact, let me duplicate it. So this is the situation that we are in. ds upon dr is 16 pi r, okay, into dr upon dt. Okay, and what's this equal to? According to the question, this is equal to 6 times dr upon dt. Okay, so dr upon dt cancels. We can now find out r. R would be equal to 6 upon 16 pi. Let's keep it in exact form till we get to the very end. So 16 upon 6 pi, if you simplify, so that's equal to 3 upon 8 pi. Okay, and I think I saw that somewhere. 3 upon 8 pi. Let me just make sure I've done everything correctly. Yeah, looks good. Okay, now, what are we supposed to do? We are supposed to find out S. Okay, so remember S was equal to 8 pi r square. So S is equals to 8 pi into 3 upon 8 pi squared. So S would be equal to 8 pi into 9 upon 64 pi squared. So we can cross out the pi and the square on the pi, and we can do 8 ones are, 8 eights are, so that's equal to 9 upon 8 pi. Now you can leave it as 9 upon 8 pi because the question hasn't mentioned whether you should write it in the exact form or anything, but you can leave it as 9 upon 8 pi or whatever 9 upon 8 pi is equal to. Okay, so 9 upon 8 pi, what's that equal to? That's equal to 0.358. Here we go. So this is what S is equal to. Right, so far so good. Will you be making more mock papers? Really? I mean, ज़्यादा नहीं हो गया आप लोगों के mocks? You guys still want to give more mocks? Okay. A particle moves in a straight line so that t seconds after passing through a fixed point O, its velocity is given by so and so. Find the distance between the particle's two positions of instantaneous rest. Yes. Okay. Even harder than this one. I don't think that's possible. Let me see. So, how do we check when the particle is coming to rest? Remember, the point where the particle comes to rest, at that point, the velocity is equal to 0. Okay. So, let's take 3 common. So, t square minus 10t plus what's 72 divided by 3? I think that's 24 is equals to 0. Now, I'm going to skip some working. T equals to 6 or t is equals to 4. Okay? Okay, now. T equals to 6 or t is equals to 4. So what do we have to do? We have to find out the distance between the particles' two positions of instantaneous rest. So that means we are now going to integrate within these two limits. Okay, we are now going to integrate within these two limits. So let's integrate velocity within these two limits, 4 and 6. So let's see what's that equal to. That would be equal to 3t square minus 30t plus 72. This is what we're integrating within the limits 4 and 6. So that means 3t cube upon 3 minus 30t square upon 2 plus 72t. Okay, and this is within the limits 6 and 4. Okay. Why do we have to S? What do you mean? S is basically displacement. Okay. So t cube minus 15t square plus 72t within the limits 6 and 4. ठीक है. अच्छा मैं इसका direct answer लिख देता हूँ. As in I'll plug in the limits. I'll do the plugging in part in my calculator. You guys just follow along. So 6 cube minus 15 times 6 squared plus 72 times 6, that's equal to 108. Okay, now in place of 6, let's plug in 4. So if in place of 6, I plug in 4, so we get 112. Okay, now remember, we get minus 4 meters, but the question is asking for distance. Okay, so the distance would be positive 4 meters. The question is just asking you, okay, what is the distance between these 2 points when the particle comes to rest, and the distance is 4 meters. Simple as that. So why do we minus? Why can't we integrate and add them? What do you mean, why do we minus? We want to find out the distance traveled between these two values of t, so we'll have to subtract after plugging in the values. Any alternative? No, I wouldn't recommend that. Sir, you are quite popular in Bangladesh. Well, I get a lot of messages from Bangladesh, so thank you, I guess. I appreciate it. Can we do the plugging in calculator? Yeah, you can do that, Amna. You can do that. Okay. Yaar, agar time ghalat aa gaya, but integrate. you will lose. Okay, so be strict on yourself. Give yourself 4 marks out of 6. Okay, give yourself 4 marks out of 6. Can you please tell me just when? When what? When what? Sir, didn't you find the displacement between... I did find the displacement. Okay. But the question is asking for distance. Okay, the displacement is minus 4 meters, which means the question is 4 meters on the opposite side of the starting point. Okay, but the question is asking how far apart are these 2 points when the object comes to rest. and they are 4 meters apart. Simple as that. Now, this is not the last question. Didn't you solve the mock? We have 2 more questions to solve. Okay, now let's have a look at part B. Find the acceleration of the particle when t is equals to 2. All right, that's simple. Let's differentiate. dv upon dt, what's that equal to? That's equal to 6t minus 30. And let's plug in 2. So 6 times 2 is 12. 12 minus 30 is minus 80. So minus 18 meter per second square. That's the acceleration. Are you excited for the silver play button? Yeah, I am actually. But let's hope I get it this session. If not this session, then inshallah next session for sure. Anyway, let's carry on. So question number 10. A is minus 12. No, it's not minus 12. It's 12 minus 30. अच्छा मैंने कुछ गड़बड़ तो नहीं कर दी 60 minus 30 सही तो है 12 minus 30 that's minus 18. Now question number 10. Question number 10 says a committee of 8 people is to be formed from 5 teachers, 4 doctors and 3 police officers. Find the number of different committees that could be chosen if all 4 doctors are on the committee. So we're forming a committee of 8 people, and what if we include all 4 doctors? So that means 4C4. Okay, this way we can make sure that the 4 doctors are included. Now the remaining 4 people will come from the remaining 8 people. So that's 8 because we combine the teacher and police officers. And from these 8 people, we want 4 more. So that would be 8C4. Let's see what that's equal to. That's equal to 70. There are at least 2 teachers on the committee. So it's a 3-mark question. That means there are probably, now please don't make this a standard rule. It means that there are probably 3 different variations that we have to consider. Okay, now I repeat, please don't make this a standard rule. So if there are at least 2 teachers, so how many teachers do we have? We have 5 teachers. How many doctors do we have? We have 4 doctors. And how many police officers do we have? We have 3 police officers. So one way that we can have 2 teachers is that we have 2 teachers. Simple as that. ठीक है. अच्छा अब एक काम करते हैं. Since the condition is on teachers, so that means we can combine the doctors and police officers, okay, and make a group of 7. And remember, we have to pick 8 people, so that means there's got to be 6 people from this group. Okay? So that means 5C2 into 7C6. Okay, so 2 teachers and remaining 6 people from either doctors or police officers. So 5C2 times 7C6, that's equal to 70. Sir, not 2 teachers, Karle? What do you mean? What if there are 3 teachers? If there are 3 teachers, that means there's got to be 5 of these. What if there are 4 teachers? If there are 4 teachers, that means there's got to be 4 of these. And what if there are 5 teachers? That means there's got to be 3 of these. Okay. So this would be 5C3 into 7C5. Let's see what's that equal to. 5C3 into 7C5. That's equal to 210. Okay. Now you no need to express D and P separately. And then 5C4 into 7C4. That's equal to 175. Okay. And then finally 5C5 into 7C3. That's equal to 35. Now let's add them up. So 35 plus 175 plus 210 plus 70. That's equal to 490. Now, if you've done this some other way, if you've done this, let's say, in a way that you have found the opposite of at least 2, you have found 0 teachers, you found 1 teacher, and then you have subtracted that from the total, that's also perfectly all right. Okay? If that's what you've done, that's also perfectly all right. Okay? Yusuf, beta, आप एक काम करो. आप अपनी मार्किंग स्कीम बना के ना, आप खुद ही अपना मॉक चेक कर लें और खुद ही अपने आप को ग्रेड दे दें. ठीक है? So that way, you're happy and I'm also happy. ठीक है? ये वाला यूसुफ नहीं, दूसरा यूसुफ. Alright, given that np5 is equals to 6 times n minus 1 p4, find the value of n. Alright, so np5. So that would be n factorial. No, the Yusuf which has a display picture. Total minus 1 teacher नहीं करेंगे, total minus 1 teacher भी करेंगे और 0 teacher भी करेंगे. because at least 2 का opposite क्या होगा? At least 2 का opposite होगा 1 and 0. So don't do total minus 1 teacher, do total minus 1 teacher as well as 0 teacher. So n factorial over n minus 5 factorial, ठीक है, is equals to 6 into n minus 1 factorial over n minus 1 minus 4 factorial. Now n minus 1 minus 4 factorial and n minus 5 factorial, they're both the same. ठीक है, 0 teacher नहीं हो सकता. Okay, हाँ 0 teacher नहीं हो सकता, you're right. ठीक है, 0 teacher क्योंकि हो ही नहीं सकता तो हम total minus 1 teacher कर लेंगे. हाँ ठीक है, सही है. So n factorial would be n into n minus 1 factorial into 6 equals to 6 into n minus 1 factorial. So now n minus 1 factorial and n minus 1 factorial also cancels. That means we don't even have a quadratic equation to deal with, and n equals to 6 is basically the answer. All right, now अच्छा ठहरो, 12c8 minus 320 आ रहा है. Okay, I'll just quickly do it here. Irrespective of the method that you use, you should get the same answer. Alternatively, you can do total minus 1 teacher, ठीक है, plus 0 teacher. Now I know 0 teacher is not possible, but we're just writing it because that's how it works. Okay, the opposite of at least 2 is 1 and 0. Now this is not possible, so we will realize that later on. So what's the total? The total would be 5 plus 4, that's 9. 9 plus 3, that's equal to 12. So 12c8. Now how many ways can you select one teacher? That would be 5c1. And the remaining 7 people will come from the remaining 7 people. Okay? So if you work this out, you will get 490 as well. Okay? So Yusuf, बेटा अब क्या करें, कुछ लोग मान लेते हैं तमीज़ से, कुछ लोग नहीं मानते, बहस करते रहते हैं. 0 teacher is not possible because if you pick 0 teachers, then you can't make a team of 8 people from the remaining 7 people. Okay, if you pick 0 teachers, that means you can't make a team of 8 people because then you will just be left with 7 people. Okay, so why didn't we take 6, 7, 8 teacher combination? Okay, I'm not going to answer that. I am not going to answer that. Take it, figure it out yourself. Okay, nobody answered the gaming wolves question also. Aman, क्यों answer किया आपने? I'm going to delete that. I hope you haven't read it. Okay. Okay, so nobody answered that question. Let him figure it out. All right, let's do the next question. In this question, I is a unit vector due east and j is a unit vector due north. A cyclist rides at a speed of 4 meters per second on a bearing of 15 degrees. वैसे do I really have to solve this question? ये मैंने recently extreme में solve किया है. करूँ solve या नहीं? अच्छा, I just realized मैंने question number 12 भी extreme में solve किया हुआ. So let me solve question number 12 because I really like this question. Question number 12, since I've solved recently. No, actually, I do guess. Okay, so variant 1 ke guess topics, beta, you can figure it out yourself. Okay, I've made it easy for you guys. That's what I've done. So what you can do is, I've posted a video. Okay, I've posted a video in which I shared an Excel sheet. And what you can do is, you can basically make a list of all the topics that came in paper 11, and then all the topics that didn't come in paper 11 are the ones that you can expect in paper 21, sorry. Okay, so download that Excel file. It will make it easy for you to figure out what topics you need to prepare. Achha, so I will take you guys over the I will walk you guys through this question. मैंने किया था ना solve? ये रहा. ठीक है, तो मैं ये लगा देता हूँ. आप लोग स्ट्रीम में से जाके देख लीजिएगा इसका solution. I'll walk you guys through it also. It's just that it's annoyingly lengthy. So here's how it works. A cyclist rides at a speed of 4 meters per second on a bearing of 15 degrees. So the bearing will tell you in which quadrant the cyclist is in, and according to that you will decide which one is going to be positive, which one is going to be negative. Write the velocity vector of the cyclist in the form xi plus yj. So you know the angle, you know the hypotenuse, find out the adjacent, find out the perpendicular. Those are going to be your x and y components. Okay, explain 11. I've solved question number 11 in the vector stream. Please check it out from there. Okay, I've solved this question in far more detail, and I've even taught the concept. Okay, so because I've done this recently only that's the reason why I'm skipping. Okay, then for part B, there are two vectors. You need to break them down into x and y components. So the first one is on a bearing of 300 degrees, so you end up in the fourth quadrant. Okay, that means x component will be negative, y component will be positive. And here you can see the x and y components. Okay. And then the other vector has magnitude 2 and is on a bearing of 230 degrees. So that means it's going to be in the third quadrant. So x and y both will be negative. As you can see here, this is the x component, this is the y component. Now you add these two vectors, this is what you get. And what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to find out the magnitude and the bearing. So the magnitude would simply be equal to the x component squared plus the y component squared. Here it is. For the bearing, you will have to draw this vector. Now this vector has x component negative and y component positive, so that means it's going to be somewhere in the fourth quadrant. So if it's in the fourth quadrant, you use the x and y components to find this angle, alpha, and to find out the bearing, add alpha to 270, and that's going to be your answer. Okay, so here are the answers. You guys can have a look. And I've solved this question, like I said, I've solved this question recently in a stream, so make sure to check it out. Okay? Now let me solve question number 12. Let's see what question, the final question. Let's see what this says. 74 is a pretty good score, Vaise. 74 is a pretty good score. So it says, given that area A is to area B is 1:k, find the exact value of k. Okay, so first of all, how can we find out area A? Let's put some thought into it. So area A, we can find out. Okay, so first let's talk about area A. Okay, then we'll talk about area B. So here's what we'll have to do first of all. We'll have to find out the area of the rectangle. Okay, and from that we'll have to subtract the area under the curve. Okay, so first we'll have to find out the area of the rectangle, and from that we'll have to subtract the area under the curve. Okay, so area A will be equal to rectangle minus curve. Now, before I figure the area out, I need to find out what are the x components. Okay, how can I find out the x components? By solving them simultaneously. So 1 plus cos x is one equation, the other is y is equals to 1. That means cos x is equals to 0. And when is cos x is equals to 0? Remember, cos x is equal to 0 at pi upon 2. Okay, so make a rough sketch if you find yourself confused as to when cos x is equal to 0. So cos x is equals to 0 at pi upon 2 and at 3 pi upon 2. Pi upon 2 and 3 pi upon 2. Okay, so pi upon 2, 3 upon 2 pi. All right, or what you can do is, you can be a little smart. You know that this is 2. Okay, since this is the graph of cos x plus 1, so that means the point where the graph was 0, which is at pi upon 2, will now be at 1. And the other point where the graph is equal to 0, which is 3 upon 2 pi, will now be at y equals to 1. Okay, so that's another way that you can find out the x coordinates. So this is pi upon 2, and this is 3 pi upon 2, or 3 upon 2 pi. Now, in order to find out the area of the rectangle, we'll have to do length times width. Achha, what's this going to be equal to? This will be equal to 3 upon 2 pi minus pi upon 2. So that's equal to pi. Okay, so this is equal to pi. So that would be pi times 1, that's the area of the rectangle, minus the area under the curve. Now please don't do this in degrees, do this in radian. Okay, every integration of a trigonometric curve related question is to be done in radian. I think the question also somewhere says that it's in radian. Does it say that? Even if it doesn't, okay, it does. It does say that the x is in radians. But even if it doesn't, it's understood that we'll do it in radians. Anyway, so cos x plus 1, which we will now integrate within the limits 3 upon 2 pi and pi upon 2. Okay? Since between these two limits, the curve is not below the x-axis, so that's why I'm taking these two limits without breaking them down. Achha, what's the integral of cos? The integral of cos is sine. So this becomes sine x plus x, and in this, we're going to plug in the limits 3 upon 2 pi and pi upon 2. Okay, now I'll use my calculator here. Make sure that it's in radian mode. So sine of 3 upon 2 pi, 3 pi upon 2. Okay, so that's minus 1 plus 3 upon 2 pi. That's with the upper limit plugged in. Now let's plug in the lower limit. Now the lower limit is pi upon 2. So that would be 0 minus pi upon 2. Okay, so let's see what we have. We have minus 1 plus 3 upon 2 pi plus pi upon 2. So 3 upon 2 pi plus pi upon 2, that would be equal to 2 pi minus 1. So 2 pi minus 1 is the area under the curve. So that means we need to do pi minus 2 pi minus 1. Okay, so pi minus 2 pi minus 1. Something's wrong. I forgot the minus sign. Where did I forget the minus sign? Tero. Let me see. So pi times 1, that's correct, minus the area under the curve, which is cos x plus 1. जिसको जब integrate करेंगे तो होगा sin x plus x, 3 upon 2 pi. So when you plug in 3 upon 2 pi minus sin x, oh yeah, no wait, when you integrate cos, that's going to be, when you differentiate sine, you get cos. So that means when you integrate cos, you get positive sine. सही तो है. When you integrate cos, you get sine. When you differentiate sine, you get cos. Tell, there's something else that's wrong. There's something else that's wrong. मैं double check कर लेता हूँ. Maybe there is nothing wrong. I'm just double checking. ठीक है. So just a minute. Sine of 3 upon 2 pi. Sine of 3 pi upon 2. That's minus 1 plus 3 upon 2 pi. ठीक है. I think it's there's nothing wrong here. Pi minus 2 pi minus 1 will make it 1 minus pi. But the problem is कि 1 minus pi तो negative आ रहा है. 1 minus pi is negative. That is the problem that I have. वरना तो और कोई problem नहीं है. Pi upon 2. So sine. अच्छा, oh wait a minute. This is plus. This is plus. This is plus. ठीक है. Never mind. This is plus. Okay, so there is nothing wrong with the integration. There is nothing wrong with what the integral or differential of sine is. ठीक है, एक sine कह रहा था. So minus 1 plus 3 upon 2 pi minus pi upon 2. Okay, everything's back to normal now. So this becomes minus 1 plus, so 3 pi upon 2 minus pi upon 2, that's basically equal to pi. Okay, now we have the area of the rectangle, so that's pi minus the area under the curve, which is minus 1 plus pi. So this becomes pi minus 1, or pi plus 1 minus pi, so pi and pi cancel, and we have 1 as the answer. Okay? Okay, now, so we have the area of region A. Now let's find out the area of region B. अच्छा, region B के लिए क्या करेंगे? Once again, we will find out the area of the rectangle. Okay, and this, by the way, will be equal to 2 pi. Okay, and this is equal to 2. Why is this equal to 2? Because plug in 0 in place of x in 1 plus cos x, and you will have 2. Okay, so once again, we will do rectangle minus the curve. So rectangle minus curve. ठीक है, क्वेश्चन भी यही बोल रहा है ना, 1:k, so 1 तो आ गया. ठीक है, so rectangle minus curve, let's see what's that equal to. Rectangle is equal to 2 pi times 2. Okay, so that's equal to 4 pi. So that's the rectangle. Now as far as the curve is concerned, it's the same curve. Okay, as far as the curve is concerned, it's the, why are you getting the same area again? I'm not getting the same area. अच्छा, let me get through this. मैं पहले b का निकालूं, फिर हम a को भी डबल चेक कर लेंगे. ठीक है, so we have cos x plus 1. All right, now what are the limits? The limits are pi upon 2, that's the lower limit. The other upper limit is 3 upon 2 pi. Okay, you're right. इसमें से we're going to subtract a also. Yeah, you're right. So basically we will first find out the area of the rectangle, and from that we'll subtract the area under the curve, and from that we'll subtract the area of a also. Okay, great. So this becomes sine x plus x. Okay, and the limits, the limits that we're going to use will be 0 and 2 pi. The limits that we're going to use will be 0 and 2 pi. Okay, so let's do the plugging in part in the calculator. So sine of 2 pi plus 2 pi. So this is equal to 2 pi when you plug in the upper limit, and when you plug in the lower limit, you get 0. Okay, so the lower limit gives you 0, so that means this is basically equal to 2 pi. Now 4 pi minus 2 pi, okay, so 4 pi is the area of the rectangle, minus 2 pi the area of the curve, minus a. And what's a equal to? A is equals to 1. So that means this is equal to 2 pi minus 1. Okay, so this is basically the area of region B. Now according to the question, the answer should be 1:k. So we are getting 1:2 pi minus 1. Okay, so what's k is equals to? K is equals to 2 pi minus 1. A is pi minus 1. A is pi minus 1. Chalo, let me just check the answer. मुझे भी लग रहा है मैंने कुछ गड़बड़ कर दी है. Let me check the answer. Even though I've solved this question so many times. Just a second. K is pi minus 1. Tero. Let me just check from the beginning to see if I've done anything wrong. So we have, sir, you wrote A as pi minus 1, 2. Okay, just a minute. मैं चेक कर लेता हूँ. नहीं, कुछ गड़बड़ है. या तो A का एरिया गलत है. The area of the rectangle is pi into 1. That's correct. Then cos x plus 1, which will become sin x plus x. And then when you plug in the limits, let me just double check. Sine, bracket open. Area of A is 2. Okay, let me check. Oh, okay. So basically when you plug in pi upon 2, 0 नहीं आ रहा, 1 आ रहा है. Okay, I think मैंने गलती से pi plug in कर दिया calculator में. Anyway, so it's fine now. So we have minus 1 plus 3 upon 2 pi minus 1 minus pi upon 2. Okay, so you have 3 upon 2 pi minus pi upon 2, that's equal to pi minus 2. ठीक है? So अब सही है? हाँ, अब सही है. It's equal to pi minus 2. ठीक है, and what's this equal to? And this is equal to, नहीं अभी भी कुछ गड़बड़ है, अभी भी कुछ गड़बड़ है, just a second. So sine of 2 pi plus 2 pi, that's equal to 2 pi. Okay. And then you have 0. So this becomes sine 0 plus. Okay. Okay guys, I'm so sorry. This is equal to what? इसको भी ठीक कर लेते हैं. Four pi minus 2 pi, and what was the area of A? Area of A was pi minus 2. So this is A. Okay, hopefully it should fall into place now. So B becomes 4 pi minus 2 pi minus pi plus 2. So that's equal to pi plus 2. Okay, you know what? मैं इसका जो मैंने solution किया है ना, मैं उसी में से देख लेता हूँ. Just a second यार. Okay, so area of A, अच्छा let's see हम क्या गड़बड़ कर रहे थे. X plus sin x, so 3 upon 2 pi minus 1 minus 1 upon 2 pi minus 1, so that's pi minus 2. ठीक है, so area of A was equal to pi minus, अच्छा ठीक है, okay, सही है, ठीक है. So area of A is equal to pi minus 2. So that means area of A is equals to 2. ठीक है, ये A आ गया. All right. Now as far as B is concerned, so B हमने सब सही निकाला है. It's 4 pi minus 2 pi minus 2. ठीक है. So as far as B is concerned, it's 4 pi minus 2 pi minus 2. Okay, because the area of A is 2. So this is equal to 2 pi minus 2. Now according to the question, A ratio B is equal to 2 ratio 2 pi minus 2. Now according to the question, it should be 1 ratio k, so we divide both sides by 2. Okay, so what's that equal to? That's equal to 1 ratio pi minus 1. So what's k is equals to? K is equals to pi minus 1. ठीक है, I'm sorry, हो जाता है कभी कभी, दिमाग नहीं काम करता. But anyway, here we are. This is the answer. ठीक है. Now, anyway, so that's it till here. I'll upload this solution. In fact, I'll do it right now, otherwise I'll forget. Okay. Now, most likely there may not be a mock tomorrow. Okay. There may not be a mock tomorrow, but there will be a mock on Monday. Okay. So there will inshallah be a mock on Monday. Let's keep it till here. Anything above 70 is really good in this paper. Even if you've scored 65 plus, I think that's also pretty good because this was a difficult paper, no doubt. Okay? So let's keep a class tomorrow, inshallah. I'll see if I can keep a stream tomorrow, if not a mock. But the other mock that you will have will most likely be on Monday, inshallah. Okay, so I'll stop here. I'll see you guys, inshallah, in the next stream. So take care, everyone. Allah Hafiz.